Hello friends, I recently went to GameStop and in that trip I picked up this really sick Charizard with a bunch of packs and I'm not going to open it because it looks too cool in the box. On top of that, I also got Metaphor and Sparking Zero. And you might notice I am not currently holding Sparking Zero, and that's because I returned it the next day. I played it for a couple hours and decided it was not for me. I did not like it. And I took it back, and I was shocked at the positive reviews and everything nice that people are saying about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, because my experience with it was absolutely abysmal. And I was going to make a video with my first impressions of Dragon Ball and why I thought it was so bad. And I started looking up gameplay of it online to kind of to get my thoughts together. And I started to realize that I just don't think I spent enough time with it. So I want to give my thoughts on why I didn't like it, but why I think I will like it if I gave it a better chance and rebought it. And I also want to talk about Metaphor. Let's react. Yeah, I want to give it an actual first impressions of Metaphor, and I'll probably spend more time talking about that game, but let me talk about Dragon Ball. So growing up, I loved Dragon Ball fighting games. I only had one Tenkaichi Budokai game, and I honestly don't remember which one it was, and I didn't get that passionately into it back in the day. It wasn't until Dragon Ball Raging Blast 1 and 2 that we talked about on this channel recently that I fell in love with this concept of a Dragon Ball fighting game. These were nigh on perfect Dragon Ball games. Being able to recreate any Dragon Ball fight or your own what if Dragon Ball fight in real time. The fighting mechanics were sick, and it really did feel like if you were on the sidelines watching two pro players play, and at one point I got pretty good at it, it looked like you were watching a fight from the anime. But since then, we've gone so far away from a good Dragon Ball fighting game of this kind, this more 3D open environment Dragon Ball game. I had to step away for like an hour and I don't remember what I was saying. Anyway, essentially, I was hoping that Sparking Zero would be like Raging Blast. But it's a lot more like the Budokai Tenkaichi games. And while these are similar, the Budokai Tenkaichi games, they weren't super balanced. And they were very, I don't know how to put this. I don't want to say like bare bones, because there is a lot of like mechanics to it. And to really get good at these games takes a lot of practice. But other than all the dodging and feinting and countering, it's a lot of just spamming the attack button, doing a couple of key blasts, and then pulling off one of your ultimate moves. Immediately, I went through all of the training stuff because I wanted to learn the controls, because that's the best way of figuring out these games. It's just by going through the checklist of everything, and I did that. And then I dived straight into story mode. And I think that's where my issue was, because this game is not balanced at all. Like, the strongest character in the anime is going to be the strongest character in the game. And when you're playing through in story mode, Goku, who I was playing with, in most of these fights was the underdog. He wasn't the strong guy. So I'm trying to fight this giant ape of Vegeta and just getting my ass absolutely handed to me as it's just spamming the same move over and over. It felt horribly cheap. It felt really unbalanced, and there just wasn't really anything I felt like I could do. And then in the more balanced fights, it just felt like constant countering. Like every time I would counter, I would get countered, and then the counters would just chain. There's videos online of people just like chain countering to like the end of Kingdom Come. And to me, it just felt severely unbalanced, and I wasn't willing to invest the time in it, and I didn't see a positive outcome in playing it. But here's the thing. Returning it is extreme. Like, returning it really, it gives a connotation of like, wow, Wood must have really hated it. But in my head, I was like, I'm just not going to play this right now. I've got Metaphor. I just went to GameStop and spent $140 on these two games now, because buying two games these days is like $140. Metaphor is an 80-long-hour game. I wasn't really vibing with Dragon Ball, and I just know that I'm going to invest the next several weeks of my life into playing Metaphor and probably other games. I'm going to forget about Dragon Ball, and by the time I'm ready to invest time in this to try and get good enough to enjoy the game's going to come down in price. This game's probably going to be a $20, $30 game at Black Friday, so ultimately I made the choice to go and return the game because I got $70 back right now, and I can just buy it again later if I decide I want to play it later when it's on sale. But again, I do think I'm missing the point of the game, and that became clear to me when I started looking at ranked gameplay online of people that really know how to play the game. And this one right here from Afro Sen, I mean, this looks awesome. I mean, the fight, it's almost like it's been choreographed with how smooth everything is, and it's giving me that Raging Blast feel that I loved. I just wasn't good enough to be able to do this. And it's funny because I watched this whole video because I got so into the fights that he was having, and even he was saying about how broken some characters are. Like near the end, he was being toxic, he said, in using Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta because it was just absolutely destroying. Like it does. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta does insane amount of damage on every hit, and he's crazy fast. Like you can see the Vegeta, I don't know who this character, this Vegeta is, but you can, I'm not caught up with Dragon Ball enough. You can see how much his health bar melts when Gogeta hits him. And that's just how unbalanced this game is, which is fine. And it's canon and campy, and it's just supposed to be fun. And yeah, if you use Chaozu against Gogeta, you're probably going to lose. It's very in line. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's very in line with the anime. Like it really just wants to feel like the show, and to every element, even the unbalanced characters, which I appreciate. And I think later when I pick it up on sale, I'll definitely be able to get into this more. And I look forward to, I say I look forward to like getting good enough at the game that I can enjoy the game, because I feel like you really do have to get to like ranked level to really have these cool fights and feel like you're in these Dragon Ball fights. But again, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to invest the time. So let's talk about Metaphor, because I am liking this one a lot more. Metaphor is by the same creators as Persona. Most recently, we had Persona 5, and now Metaphor. Funny enough, Metaphor, everyone was waiting for Persona 6, and then out of nowhere, the creators were like, we're not doing that just yet. We're doing this new thing. And to me, when I saw that, I was a little bummed because I really just want Persona 6. But the more we saw at this game, the more it was actually shaping up to be a really cool looking game. And I didn't mind the deviation while waiting for Persona 6. You know, I didn't mind something fresh and something new. And I do want to encourage game developers that make our favorite series of games the freedom to be able to make something else so that it doesn't get stale. You know, I feel bad for Game Freak in many ways because they're just stuck making Pokemon games, and anytime they try something different, it doesn't really work out for them. So I was keen to give it a shot, and then I was never like super excited for it because I'm not invested in any kind of Metaphor franchise. But then when I saw it scored higher than Persona 5 by 1 point on Metacritic, and it's a must play on Metacritic, I was like, damn, this game must be pretty good. I really didn't know what to expect going in. Looking at gameplay online, I thought they were going for more of a hacky slash style of approach because there was footage of attacking creatures in the overworld and it didn't look turn-based. Turns out, as I've been playing it, it is quite literally Persona with a fresh coat of paint. There are some differences, and there are ways to do combat. For lower ranked enemies, it won't trigger a turn-based fight, and you literally can just hack and slash them, and then you get all the points and rewards like you battled them. So that's really cool and a nice new feature. In general, when you attack creatures now in the overworld, even ones you want to get into a turn-based fight, you can wail on them for a little bit and do some damage to them before you like break a shield type thing, and then you can go in to a turn-based battle and they'll be stunned and also have like half health. So it really rewards you for not getting caught by enemies and instead getting that initiative advantage on them. There are things I really love about this game, but I'll say that it took me, I want to say, a good 5 hours to start getting into it. The first 5 hours, as I said, I bought Dragon Ball the same time, and I knew I was going to return Dragon Ball. I was just playing Metaphor until I got to a point where I felt like I didn't also want to return Metaphor, which is crazy, I know, but I was like, I could just get my $140 back right now. The first 5 hours was not super enjoyable. I thought it was a very slow start. I found all the characters to be very bland. I had no attachment to any characters. I had no attachment to the world. I really wasn't getting invested in the story, and it was mostly dialogue and talking. With like Persona 5, it starts you in the casino, and it starts you in like one of the most epic parts of the game in fights, and it's so high action. And then when it goes to school life and talking, you've already had that serotonin high of knowing what's coming, and you've had some action already, and you're already invested at that point. The adrenaline's already been raised. The first 5 hours of Metaphor is just purely story setup with very few moments of you being able to even move as the character. And every time you get control, you move a few steps, you get blasted with tutorials, and then it goes into cutscene again. And you'll be sat in cutscene for 20 minutes, then you'll get thrown back into gameplay where you can walk 20 steps, and then you get thrown back into cutscenes again. Then at like the 5 hour mark, you randomly just get given your first palace equivalent of Persona. All of a sudden, I was in a palace, and I got to do a whole palace, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a whole couple hours of just trudging through a dungeon and killing things and then killing the final boss. And that was all awesome. And as soon as that palace is done, you finally get access to the real life stuff and the sim stuff, and you can sort of spend your days how you want. It gets very Persona. You have your afternoon and your evenings that you can spend however you want, or you can go dungeon crawling or do a battle. Now, I'll say for the next like 20 hours of Metaphor, I still thought all the characters were so bland. Like, even now where I'm at in the game, I'm not really attached to any of them. There's been very few moments of personality, I feel like. The redhead girl, sorry, I can't remember her name right now. Oh, Hunkleberg or something. She had one moment where she had personality. There was this like a pop star in the desert, and she was like excited to meet her, and it was like the first moment in the whole game where one of these characters showcased some sort of emotion or characteristic that I thought was endearing. And it made me like her a little bit more. Like, she's sort of opening up to be a bit more of a wacky character, considering she's been this like really like strong knight character the whole time. But other than that, not really getting any emotion. I feel like in Persona, each of the kids have such strong emotions. In Persona 5, you had the nerdy girl who was like really shy. You had the really rambunctious yellow, the guy that wore yellow and was always yelling and screaming, Skull, whatever his actual name was. Everyone had these really standout personalities that made them special. And no, I just don't feel like any of these characters have any personalities that stand out. So I'm not really getting sucked into the game in that way like I do with Persona, but now I am getting sucked into the gameplay loop, and I appreciate how much more fleshed out it is to Persona. Because in Persona, you have this hard separation between battles and real life, right? Like, if you want to go do battles, you have to go sucked into the TV world in Persona 4, or you have to go into the metaverse in Persona 5, and it's like a whole separate thing. But this is all that fantasy world, like Final Fantasy, where there's just creatures in the overworld. There's creatures in this world. This is just a fantasy world. So at any point, you can just leave the town and go to a little side area or a forest or a desert and just go kill some things without having to leave the reality. Like, it's all part of the same fantasy world reality. And that makes it a lot more smoother a transition of, well, today I want to go battle in the forest, or today I want to go hang out with my friend, or I want to go shopping, or like do this or that. So it's all much more cohesive and all happening in the world. And I'm finding that a lot more engrossing than I do in Persona. I still haven't got to the point where there's any sort of fun hangout activities. I don't know if you have that in a medieval world, but I haven't seen any like equivalent of the baseball batting cages or going to go play darts with your friends in Persona. It's all very, just killing things or leveling up your traits by talking to people. I definitely have a long way to go in this game. And I'm seeing a lot of things about it that I really like, both down to the battling, the new UI, the new abilities, the way that you work together in battles, and also the way the world works and how battling and fighting as opposed to hanging out with your friends and all of that meshes together. But I definitely have to get further in, I think, to fully flesh out this game. And I will say that the only reason why I've given it as much time as I have is because I have so much faith in these developers and I love Persona so much. Otherwise, I think I would have given up on this game 5-10 hours in. But I'm definitely persevering because I see the vision and I have the trust that it's going to get a lot better. I'm not the kind of guy that usually invests 20 hours into a game while I wait for it to get good. You know that about me. But yeah, these developers definitely have my faith that I'm willing to give it that much time. And they're definitely drip feeding me parts that I like. And there's definitely been a lot of surprises. And they wanted to do a lot of twists and turns in the story. And I'm definitely getting hit with a lot of those twists and turns. I would love to talk more about this, but I'm getting really congested and my throat's starting to absolutely kill me. So yeah, let me know if you're playing either of these two games down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of them and your thoughts on my thoughts. I want to stress that I'm really liking Metaphor. I still prefer Persona, but I'm giving Metaphor more of a chance. I didn't like Dragon Ball initially, and I think it needs more time, but I'm definitely willing to give it another shot. All right, that's it. I'm out. Like, comment, and hair flip on that subscribe button. I'm going to go lie down.